For many years, the Mormon Church has been stockpiling $1 to $2 billion of surplus tithing into a reserve of the reserves inside a 501c3 nonprofit called Ensign Peak Advisors. This year, 2019, Ensign Peak Advisors grew past $100 billion in market-based, non-real estate allocated capital with approximately $44 billion in U.S. stocks, $12 billion more internationally, $27 billion in bonds, $6 billion in private equity, $10 billion in hybrid instruments, $3 billion in portfolio cash, and another $4 billion in treasury cash. These investments have been producing annual returns of close to 7%. That means that Ensign Peak Advisors grows by $7 billion each year from capital gains, dividends, interest, etc., plus another $1 to $2 billion each year from excess tithing. All church operations consume between $5 and $6 billion per year of tithing. It is officially, finally true that the Mormon Church could tell every member in the world to completely stop paying tithing now and forever, and it could continue to fund every current program in full without drawing down on the reserves. In other words, Ensign Peak Advisors would continue to grow. This is true in large part because, as a 501c3, Ensign Peak Advisors has enjoyed a tax-exempt status. It has garnered about $20 billion in tax breaks in total from the American public. All 501c3s, regardless of their classification or type, have an expectation of doing something religious, educational, or charitable, something in the public good, with their assets from time to time. Ensign Peak Advisors has never spent even one dime on anything religious, educational, or charitable in 22 years since it was incorporated in September 1997, which is 1 month after Times Magazine wrote its cover story entitled Mormons, Inc., exposing some of the Mormon Church's assets at the time. Ensign Peak Advisors has no tax-exempt purpose. It has literally no liability stream, no calls for capital, and no plans for using the money at all. The mandate given by the First Presidency and the presiding bishopric is to only focus on financial growth. EPA employees are told that the money will be used after the second coming of Jesus Christ or during Armageddon right before he would come again. The IRS would not view these as legitimate tax-exempt purposes. In addition, Ensign Peak Advisors has engaged in 2 misapplications of funds that are contrary to its articles of incorporation and therefore unlawful. In 2009, it bailed out Beneficial Financial Group, owned by Desert Management Corporation, which is owned by the Mormon Church, with a $6 million check that came from Ensign Peak Advisors' treasury account, which contains only never invested tithing surplus. The second misapplication of funds went to cost overruns associated with the City Creek Mall, with $1.4 billion being paid out over 5 years to finish construction. Despite many public statements to the contrary, this was also paid for using never invested tithing surplus from Ensign Peak Advisors' treasury account. Ensign Peak Advisors' tax-exempt status may be pulled, even retroactively, for having never made any religious, educational, or charitable distribution in 22 years, and for 2 very serious misapplications of funds. In addition, the Mormon Church's tax-exempt status may also be pulled into question, as it would likely not pass a, quote, commensurate test with the IRS, meaning that it is now so financially large and entangled that it actually behaves more like a business than a church, and should be taxed accordingly. The Mormon Church has made several intentionally deceitful statements that, in my opinion, do amount to fraud, especially by its presiding bishopric. For example, Mr. Gérald Caussé, presiding bishop, gave a talk in 2018 entitled Financing Faith, which is available at newsroom.churchofjesuschrist.org, which quotes him quoting President Hinckley, quote, "The combined income from all these business interests is relatively small and would not keep the work going for longer than a very brief period," close quote. This is very disingenuous to say in 2018. It is clear that the combined income from Ensign Peak Advisors' investment returns alone, to say nothing of all the other revenue-producing assets of the Mormon Church, is greater than all the tithing that is contributed by members each year. It is enough to keep the work going for much longer than a very brief period. Right now and going forward, it can support the work in perpetuity. The monthly dues for missionary service are increasing from $400 per missionary per month to $500. With 70,000 missionaries, the total annual dues are $336 million. The reserve of the reserves in Ensign Peak Advisors grows each year by 23 times that amount. The Mormon Church, via Mr. Dallin H. Oakes, boasts that it annually spends $40 million globally on all humanitarian aid efforts. It puts 50 times that amount each year into its longest term piggy bank, which is already now past $100 billion. The real estates in Ag Reserves Inc. and Property Reserves Inc. are another $20 billion approximately. There are many other reserves such as Deseret Trust Company, Deseret Management Company Reserve Trust, other holding companies, and many other property reserves. Speaking conservatively, the Mormon Church is now larger than $200 billion in assets. More than half of that is in the very highly liquid securities inside Ensign Peak Advisors. For the full expose, please read the 74-page PDF that you can download from the link beneath this video. That expose contains 62 well-referenced footnotes, 59 endnotes, and 34 pages of exhibits featuring documents obtained from Ensign Peak Advisors itself. I've also created a much longer video that walks you through the full story with some personal commentary, which is also available using a link beneath this video. This and hundreds of supporting electronic files were handed over to the IRS and to the media. Please like, subscribe, and share this information and your views on social media. Our only responsibility is to the truth. So let's say it and let's do something about it.